Good day, everyone. This is Professor Arnold B. Asupigi, your Assessment of Student Learning lecturer. Welcome to the online-led review, where you find the test items easy and answer them correctly. Let's start with the 50 items of the first set of the Assessment of Student Learning. Let's start with question number 1. All of the following are factors that influence test validity except one. The correct answer is letter B. Adequacy is one of the factors affecting test reliability. This pertains to the appropriate length of the test and the proper sampling of the test content. It should be long enough to contain a sufficient number of representative items of the behavior to be measured so that it is able to give a true statement. If you look at options A, B, C, and D, these are all factors that influence test validity, except letter B, because letter B is a factor that influences test reliability. For item number 2, which conclusion can be derived from the K-12 assessment practice? The K-12 assessment practice is the assessment that is being used in the DepEd or the Department of Education. So the correct answer here is letter B, because assessment practice make use of the multiple sources. Classroom assessment in the K-12 basic education program recognizes three very important things. First, diversity of learners inside the classroom. Second, the need for multiple ways of measuring their varying abilities and learning potentials. And the third one, the role of the learners as co-participants in the assessment process. So assessment in the K-12 curriculum focus on the different and multiple sources so that students will be able to cater the different needs that they have. Let's proceed now to question number 3. Why is it considered unfair to learners for mathematics to use only the traditional tools of assessment? If you look at the options here, we all know that traditional tools are very familiar that teacher may use in the classroom. But the right answer for this type of question is letter A. Learners learn and demonstrate learning in multiple ways other than in written form. And we all know that the most widely used traditional assessment tools are multiple choice tests, true or false tests, short answers, and essays. And this type of assessment are purely the development of the cognitive aspect of the learner. This does not cater to the other domains of learning. Question number 4. Which best explains assessment as learning? So if you have noticed, you have three statements that we have to choose from this question. So we have letter A as the correct answer. Why? 1 and 2 refers to assessment as learning. The use of a scoring rubric makes it specific to the learner on the ideal expected output, and the use of the scoring rubric gives the learner opportunity for self-assessment. If you look at assessment as learning, the students here can reflect on their work on a regular basis, and these students can use it through self and peer assessment. And by that, they can decide with the help of their teacher at a very early stages what their learning will be. And the evaluation in the use of assessment as learning usually done with the aid of a rubric. So the answer is letter A. Let's proceed now to item number 5. If you use authentic assessment in mathematics class, which activity will you make use of? So the correct answer is letter C. In mathematics class, authentic assessment will give the students situations that occur in the real world, which require them to apply their relevant skills and knowledge. So usually students can perform tasks in the real world, and students also can do it inside and outside of the classroom. And we all know that authentic assessment is designed to be using the criterion reference evaluation rather than the norm reference evaluation, because authentic assessment students have to achieve the preset and predefined task. Let's proceed now to item number 6. Give the situation where two teachers applied for a teaching position. One teacher applicant passed the written test but failed the demonstration teaching, while the other applicant passed the demonstration teaching but failed in the written test. The latter is generally preferred. What does this imply about assessment practice? So, looking at the choices that we have here, what will be your answer? Correct answer is letter A. Authentic assessment is preferred than traditional assessment. So, alternative or authentic assessment, could be objective tests that reflect real-life situations. Or, these are alternative methods that are parallel to what we experience in life. If you look at the question, the preference of the panel members is more on the delivery of the lesson in an actual scenario, rather than considering the result of the test as part of the screening process. So panel members wanted to hire a teacher who is good in the delivery of the lesson rather than the result of the test. So the correct answer is letter A. Item number 7. Authentic assessment are said to be more structured than teacher structured. What does this mean? Okay, so the choices are situational. We ask here, which of these are authentic assessment? Is that more student structured or a teacher structured? So the correct answer is letter A. This one allows more students' choice in determining what is presented as evidence of proficiency. This evaluation identifies the strengths and weaknesses, but the teacher here does not compare or rank students. So the use of this type of assessment, this procedure does not determine in advance who among or what number of students will be passing or failing in the given course, because this is a performance-based type of assessment. Let's proceed to number 8. Why are traditional assessment said to be more teacher-structured than student-structured? So if you look at here the situations, we are asked here, why is it traditional assessment is it a structured, teacher-structured or a student-structured? So the correct answer is letter A. In here, the students will show learning as a proof of their learning is dependent on what? Question number 8. Why are traditional assessments said to be more teacher-structured than student-structured? Looking at the options, the question asks us how traditional assessment look alike. Is it teacher-centered or student-centered? So the correct answer is letter A. In traditional assessment, teachers serve as evaluators and students as the evaluative. This is a situation which is a more teacher-structured situation. Assessment is separated from teaching and learning. Test usually comes after instruction to evaluate if the students have successfully learned the content. Therefore, the answer is letter A. For item number 9 to 14, here are 2 scoring rubrics. Study them, then answer the following questions. So try to look at item number 9 to 14, and then your reference would be the 2 rubrics. Okay. Rubric A consists of criteria and the levels of performance. So we have 4 criteria here, and you have 3 levels of performance or achievement. And rubric B, we have number of sources, historical accuracy, organization, and bibliography. These are also composed of 4 criteria. And you have 3 levels of achievement. Question number 9. For which are these scoring rubrics? The correct answer is letter A. The rubric is about a portion of a project in a research, or a research portion of a particular project. Looking at the given rubric that we have, it clearly describes the degree of the criterion satisfied or not by the performance or product. So looking at that, you can see there that there is a differential weighing of the qualities of a product of a performance because of the presence of the level of performance or achievement. Item number 10. How are rubrics A and B classified? Is it a holistic, analytic, values, skills rubric? So the correct answer is letter B. Both rubrics A and B are all analytic rubric because this describes the quality of a performance or product in terms of the identified dimensions and or criteria for which are rated independently to give us a better picture of the quality of work or performance that the student will do. If you have noticed, though they are both analytic rubric, but there are also differences. The 2 rubrics differ on the content, the way it is being presented, but they are both analytic. Okay? Let's proceed now to item number 11. Rubrics A and B are meant to assess research portion of a project. How many criteria is the research being assessed? Okay? Looking back on the rubrics A and B, the rubrics consist of 4 criterion. So letter A. In developing rubrics, as you recall with our lecture, it is very important to describe the gradations of quality product or excellent performance, and it is usually aimed for an even number of levels. Why is it so? Because a particular rubric should have an even number of levels for us to avoid the central tendency source of error. Because having an even number of levels, this type of rubric will avoid or prevent the teacher to commit the central tendency error. Let's proceed to item number 12. Are the criteria for research given equal weight? What's your answer? Okay. The correct answer is letter C. No. The historical accuracy criterion is given the most weight if you look at the rubric. So that consists of how many percent? Or that consists of how many points? Historical accuracy is given times 3 of the rubric. So if you develop a rubric, teacher is required to determine the weights or points for each criterion and the whole work of performance in the final grade. Make sure to highlight the distinguishing traits for every performance level for the purpose of clarity. And that's one very important aspect that you have to consider when you develop our item number 13. Among the criteria for good research, which one is given greatest importance? If you look at the rubric A and rubric B, the criteria this is given the greatest weight is on historical research, historical accuracy. This type of research focus on historical accuracy. That is why it is given the most weight or points, because this focus on the gathering of information on historical facts. Eventually, this will be given more weights or more points. Item number 14. What details in rubric A that are not in rubric B? So what are those details? The correct answer is letter A. There is no specific description. In the elements of a rubric, evaluative criteria under indicators or specific descriptors should be made clear using observable traits. So therefore, it's very important that you have to write down specific descriptors. And that makes rubric B, which cannot be found in rubric A. Item number 15. Which goes with authentic assessment in the social science class? If the teacher is having social science class, what is about authentic assessment in that? So, social sciences can perform the test and the use of a scoring rubric. Because you all know that assessment is based on authentic tests, meaning to say the students have the ability to demonstrate their skills and to accomplish communication goals and the use of a rubric. So both is authentic assessment. You can perform the test with the use of a rubric. Item number 16. What does teaching to the test mean? Okay, so we have options A, B, and C here. The correct answer is letter A, because teachers teach by focusing primarily what is to be tested. Meaning to say, there should be alignment of the learning objectives and the assessment. Because you all know that good teaching is about designing instruction that directly builds knowledge and skills found on a test or assessment. An apt reason to teach to the test is so that your students can successfully demonstrate their knowledge and skills. That is why alignment of the objectives and evaluation is very important, because in the evaluation, students can perform that test or task because that is reflected in their lesson objectives. Item number 17. Assessments should be multiple and varied. What does this mean? We have three statements here. Let's try to scrutinize among the three statements that would describe the question. So the correct answer is letter D. All the statements 1, 2, and 3 are best explains the question being asked. Because good assessment procedure does not focus only in one aspect. It should cater the holistic dimension of every learner. The same as saying that it will gather information of all sorts. That is best explanation why assessment should have multiple and varied ways to assess students' learning. Let's proceed now to number 18. Which are true of a portfolio? Okay. By means of a portfolio, what should a teacher do, students do, or parents do? Okay, so we have 3 or 4 statements here, or even the supervisors. So among the 4 statements that we have here, we're asked what particular or sets of statements that would describe portfolio. So the correct answer is letter D. We have 3 and 4. Because we all know that when you require students to do portfolio, students are engaged in the selection of some materials for their portfolio. As such, making portfolios help the parents also to construct a well-rounded and authentic picture of each child's growth. On the other hand, the supervisors, teachers have the baseline in the performance of the learners and even the academic programs by looking into the portfolios. So therefore, parents can help or could be a source for the improvement of the learning. At the same time, supervisors also will be using that one in evaluating academic programs. So, correct answer is letter D. Item number 19. Teacher Trish likes to determine whether or not the student is able to focus the microscope according to set standards. Which assessment tool will she use? Okay? In this type of question, Teacher Trish is trying to assess the students using a performance-based assessment. So what specific assessment tool will the teacher will be using? The correct answer is letter A, performance checklist. Performance checklist is used to determine whether or not an individual behaves in a certain or the desired way when the students are asked to complete a particular task. So teacher will simply observe and roam around the classroom and look into the performances of the students by using a performance checklist, whether or not the student was able to do the task or not. Question number 20. In which level in Bloom's cognitive taxonomy objectives are questions that begin with restate in your own words and convert fractions into? This level fall under what? Looking at the Bloom's taxonomy, the correct answer is letter B. If you have noticed here, we have the Bloom's wheel. The Bloom's wheel give us the idea what particular keywords that we're going to use when we have to construct our text or even to construct our objective. Comprehension. In the comprehension level, this is the ability to grasp the meaning of the material. This may be shown by translating this material from one form to another, or let's say words to numbers. And then we have to interpret the material by explaining or summarizing, or by estimating future trends. Would it be predicting consequences or effects? So those keywords are related to the comprehension level. Let's proceed now to item number 21. Item number 21 states that which are true of portfolio assessment. We are talking here about portfolio assessment, and this is different from portfolio. Portfolio in the definition of portfolio is different from the idea of portfolio assessment. So we have here 4 statements. And let's try to scrutinize which among the 4 statements describe portfolio assessment. The correct answer is letter D. You have all the statements describes what do you mean by portfolio assessment. You have 1, 2, 3, and 4. So portfolio assessment emphasizes the active demonstration of knowledge through the evidence of student work and veers away from traditional testing in the sense of the use of the paper-pencil cognitive test. So the 4 statements promote self-evaluation, self-reflection, and critical thinking. Also, portfolio assessment measures performance from the output or product of the student. Then there's also flexibility because the students can accomplish their learning goals. At the same time, in the portfolio assessment, teacher and student can share responsibility because the student will have to seek advice from the teacher, and the teacher will also eventually give advices what will be the output of their work. So, letter D. Item number 22. To which type of assessment does assessment of learning refer? Take note of the EOL, assessment of learning. So the correct answer is letter A, summative assessment. Let's go back to the concept of assessment of learning. Assessment of learning assists teachers in using evidence of student learning to assess achievement against, take note, outcomes and standards. Outcomes and standards. So you usually associate assessment of learning as summative assessment because this is usually occur at a defined key points during the unit of work or at the end of a unit, at the end of a term, or at the end of a semester. And in the summative assessment or assessment of learning, the teacher can now give grades or rank the students. Okay. Item number 23. The phrase assessment as learning refers to. Okay, so you have 4 statements here. Is that self-assessment, summative, formative, or standardized? So the correct answer is letter A. Assessment as learning occurs when students are their own assessors. So students can do self-assessment. Students can monitor their own learning. They can ask questions. They can use a varied strategies to decide what they know and can do, and how to use assessment for new learning. That's the good thing about assessment as learning because students they will know their role as assessment as learning. So they will be assessors. Let's proceed now to item number 24. In what way are students involved in the formative process? We are looking into the idea of formative process. So we have here 4 statements again. So what students can do when you have formative process? So the right answer is letter A. Students can monitor their ongoing process or ongoing progress. Why? Because students are doing formative assessment. So we all know that formative assessment usually occurs throughout the teaching and learning process. Because in this process, the students can clarify their learning and understanding. And if you look at deep edge, K-12 assessment, formative assessment occurs in the three phases of the lesson. You have before, during, and after the lesson. So formative assessment can be done in the three phases. You can do it before the lesson, during the lesson, and after the lesson. So therefore, formative process is to monitor the ongoing progress of every learner. Number 25. What does a portfolio include? So we have four statements here. So the four statements is to be selected which of these describe portfolio. The correct answer is letter A. A portfolio is demonstrating the students know or their knowledge in what ways that this knowledge encompasses with their personal learning style and their multiple intelligences. Because in portfolio, it offers multiple indicators of student progress. You can see there their personal touch of their portfolio. You can see their personal learning style, and you can also look at their multiple intelligences. So every portfolio differs from one student to another student.